I think in the industry we only are represented between 20 to 25%, and it's actually a great opportunity for women, because if you think about what we are producing, building applications for, building systems for, 50% of our communities here as well as globally are women. So it's really great to understand what women need in the applications we build, in the systems we build. So no better person to say that than a female. So I would encourage businesses to hire more women, as well as more females to actually get into the IT field.
Speaking to Ishara, hi Ishara. First of all, tell me, how does it feel to be a part of the alumni, and what your thoughts are on this alumni cocktail?
I think this is a good event because we get to meet quite a lot of full graduates, friends that we haven't met in a long time. I think it's a good initiative.
It's all about cherishing those memories. So tell me about your experience at IIT, and how has it helped you progress in your career and so on?
It's been great. I think I learned a lot. It's not just subject knowledge. It's actually like mingling with people, social skills, and I am who I am. I think part of I am who I am is because of IIT. So it's been great.
In conversation with Lakindu. Hi Lakindu, tell me, how does it feel to be a part of the alumni of IIT and to be part of this cocktail?
Hi, it's a wonderful event to start off. From the AGM to the cocktail, I mean, the networking of finding, getting to know more people is very advantageous for us. As a fresh graduate out of IIT, I mean, the exposure we get right here is amazing. Yeah.
Tell us about your experience.
I declare this convocation open.
Good evening. Dr. Gamini Vikramasinghe, Chairman of the Informatics Group. Dr. Aturupani, Chief Economist of the World Bank. Dr. John and Professor Nirmali from Robert Gordon University. Members of the board, members of staff, parents, relatives and spouses of the graduates, and my dear students. Welcome to the Convocation 2021 of Robert Gordon University, Scotland. It gives me great pleasure to be here to celebrate your success. And by no means it's a small success. Against all odds, against all adversity, we are here to celebrate your achievement, and it's a great one. As we all know, postgraduate studies, as it is, it's no easy task. You'll juggle multiple priorities, multiple responsibilities, be it your work, be it your families, your children, your parents. And this year, actually these 2 years, had been a multiple of 10 of those challenges. I'm sure some of the companies that you're working have gone through that. You personally, some of your families have gone through those. So you have shown great resilience, that you can achieve your goal, your targets, amidst all these adversities. That's why I mentioned it's a great achievement, and I'm very humble and privileged to be here to celebrate that success with you. So definitely you have gained added qualification with your master's degree today to tell your employers or potential employers with confidence that you are a confident graduate who would not crack under pressure. And that carries a long way, probably more than the degree itself. They say it's how you respond to adversity, but not the adversity itself. It's going to define how your life is going to span out. So you have shown how you respond, and I hope and I wish all of you will take that lead and carry it to the rest of your futures and be winners all the way. All the best for a bright future, and thank you.
Find the right piece of paper. Graduates, friends, and family, it is a great honor for me to be here today with you in person to celebrate your exceptional success. To those graduating today, you have all worked extremely hard over the time you've been here. You've coped amazingly with what has been a very challenging situation, and the standard of work you have produced is exceptional. You've all risen to that challenge, working your hardest, doing your best, managing your work and your studies. Each and every single one of you should be immensely proud of what you have achieved. I would like to ask you all to join me in a round of applause to celebrate your achievements. Of course, do take a moment today to thank the people who have supported you, your tutors, your family, your friends. Please again join me in a round of applause for those that have supported you. The partnership between IIT and RGU is incredibly important. Our institutions share common goals in preparing students for employment and a drive for innovation and excellence in everything that we do. More than this, though, our partnership highlights that despite vast geographical distances, technology brings us together. Data and its analysis will clearly play a vital role throughout the world. The solutions to global challenges, societal, economic, and environmental, will all be supported by understanding and analysing data. You will all drive that work, using the skills you have learned through your time here. Finishing university is a big day in your lives. Think back to your first day at IIT and remember how excited and perhaps scared you were then about that journey on which you were about to embark. I am sure some of you have similar feelings today. Always remember that despite the trepidation you felt then, you succeeded and you got to where you are now. Carry that success with you and let it guide you in this next step in your journey. You're about to graduate in a field that is ever-changing and evolving, that will allow you to be involved in innovation and have a real impact on society. A field that will continue to grow with you all as part of it. The world has become even more digital recently, and I do not doubt that you will all go out and drive future changes in our subject, the industry, and indeed the world. Whatever you go on to do, whether it be employment, whether it be further studies, or go into research, in viam au facitum.
in absentia. MHL Chamali. KAJ Chandika. LHS De Silva. CR Fernando. WWMDY Fernando. P. Guru Singha. HRCLB. KPG PP Hemaratna. HM Jayatilaka. LCD Karunaratna. IR Kulatunga in absentia. WPWAS Mantri Ratna. V. Minudini. HAB Nanayakara. NPK Nanayakara. DPDKD Premaratna. PTD Pereira. RHNG Ranuka. Ranamuka. RP Ranasingha. RATN Ranavira. VAS Sandamal. SHTV Sarath Chandra. N. Selvaratnam. SJPD Seniviratna. DMJ Silva. TMCB Tennakon. SK Udeshika. ID Veeratunga. HD Velivita. DN Vikramasinghe. KL Vijendra. Postgraduate Diploma in Big Data Analytics, KHJC De Silva, in absentia. WNDUS De Silva, in absentia. WJEA Fernando. RPG AP Lakmal. PKD Sandaruwan. MV Sinathambi, in absentia. Postgraduate Certificate in Big Data Analytics, WRH Pereira, in absentia. ARDT Ramanayaka, in absentia.
Dignitaries at the head table, and ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor of announcing the names of those who have completed the Masters of Science in Business Analytics, also Postgraduate Diploma in Business Analytics, and Postgraduate Certificate in Business Analytics of Robert Gordon University, Scotland, completed at IIT Informatic Institute of Technology, Sri Lanka. MSc in Business Analytics, WT Avishkar. S.S. Badaturage. K.R. S.T.D. Soisa. R. Dayalni. P.K.U. Dilhani. K.A. Ferdinandus. W.A.S. Fonseca. C.S.K. Gamage. N.S. Gamage. J.V. Muttaya. N. Nicholas. W.T. Nirushan. A.P.P.S. Patirana. P.S.C. Pereira. M.W.J.R. Punyaratna. W.P.P. Samaratunga. F.H. Sharif. R.M.K.G.C. Tennakon, in absentia. W.M.T.B. Udugoda. K. Utistra. HLP Vikramasinghe. SM Vijayawardena in absentia, and DLN Yasanti. Next, I will announce the names of postgraduate diploma in business analytics. DPD Bhagya in absentia. LRM De Silva in absentia. HMKB Herat in KJSS Jaguda in absentia. J. Parameshwaran in absentia, and SP Sirisena in absentia. Thank you. I wish all the best for the graduates.
There is one more graduate from the Master of Science in Big Data Analytics. We have LBAS Dayaratna. Thank you.
Dr. John Isaac, Head of School of Computing, Robert Gordon University, Scotland. Dr. Gamini Vikramasinghe, Chairman, Informatics Group of Companies and founder of Informatics Institute of Technology. Dr. Harsha Aturupani, Lead Economist of the World Bank and our chief guest this evening. Mr. Mohan Fernando, CEO of Informatics Institute of Technology. Professor Nirmali Veeratunga, Professor in Intelligent Systems, School of Computing, Robert Gordon University. Deans of the faculties and heads of the department, directors of IIT and members of the Board of Governance, members of the Academia, registrar and members of the administrative staff of IIT, graduates, parents, and guardians. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you for the 2021 Robert Gordon University Convocation of Informatics Institute of Technology, Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, my task this evening is to introduce our chief guest, Dr. Harsha Aturupani, a very distinguished personality to our audience. Dr. Aturupani is an internationally recognized researcher, author, and speaker in the fields of education, economics, and human development. Indeed, we are really privileged to have him today as our chief guest to share his thoughts with our audience. Dr. Aturupani graduated from the University of Colombo in 1996 with a first-class honors degree in economics. His meritorious performance during his undergraduate career at the university earned him a position in the Department of Economics as an assistant lecturer in the same year. While working, he completed the postgraduate diploma in economics in 1987. Soon after completing his PG DIP program at the University of Colombo, he won a scholarship from the prestigious University of Cambridge, under which he completed an MPhil and PhD in economics. On his return to Sri Lanka, after completing his studies at Cambridge, he was promoted to the grade of senior lecturer in economics. His teaching interests at the university range from microeconomics, econometrics, to development economics. However, the World Bank did not allow Dr. Aturupani to limit his services to the University of Colombo. He was invited to join the World Bank Group in 1999. He joined the World Bank in the year as lead economist, lead education specialist. During his stay at the World Bank, he worked and wrote extensively in the fields of human development, education economics, covering both higher education and general education, labor economics, welfare economics, and poverty reduction. His responsibilities further involve leading teams in the preparation and supervision of World Bank-funded projects and programs, covering a wide range of activities such as higher education, general education, health, social protection, economic reform, and strengthening governance processes, vital for the socio-economic development of many nations. The spectrum of countries that came under his purview covers East Asia, South Asia, Europe, Central Asia, Middle East, North Africa, East Africa, and West African regions of the World Bank. Dr. Aturupani, we believe your voice would be a critical addition to our audience this evening with all your credentials. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, now let me please join in welcoming Dr. Harsha Aturupani to the podium to deliver the keynote address of 2021 RGU IIT Convocation.
Let me begin by thanking the Informatics Institute of Technology, the staff and the graduates now, for inviting me to speak today. It's both a pleasure and a privilege to be here at the IIT Convocation in what I see is an extremely important set of degrees, of master's degrees, with a very impressive looking set of young people who have done these degrees. I thought I would address you on a topic that is relevant for economists like myself, for educators like the staff of your institute, and also for graduates like yourselves who work in the area of what we call the fourth industrial revolution. So among economists, we distinguish 4 stages of industrial revolutions. The first industrial revolution took place around 1760, starting in the United Kingdom, from where I see Robert Gordon University is also located. And what we saw in the 1760s was essentially the beginning of what we call modern industrialization, based on the application of science to solving real-world problems, and then what we see as technology, which is really the application of science to the solution of problems. And what is interesting also among economists is that when you look at the scientific knowledge that was available in 1760 around the world, and also of course in the UK, that level of scientific knowledge was also available around AD1, let's say in the period of say 100 BC to 100 AD in the Roman Empire. That level of scientific knowledge was available, for example, in Alexandria in the Roman Empire, the second city of the Roman Empire. Right? And virtually everything that was known in 1760 was also known around AD 1 among what were then called the philosophers. But what we didn't see in the Roman Empire was an industrial revolution. We didn't see technology emerging the way we saw technology emerging in 1760. And what we actually see is, in a way, a missed opportunity for industrialization to have started 2,000 years ago, rather than just 350 years ago. The second industrial revolution took place roughly 100 years later, starting around 1860. And in 1760, we saw, for example, steam-powered engines and the beginning of automation. In 1860 and onwards, we saw more automated industrial production. We saw the application of electricity to industry. We saw various kinds of production chains coming up in around 1860. And then we also saw around 1960, so 100 years later, the third industrial revolution, with especially electronics and computers playing a major role in economic processes. And then now, 50 years later, 60 years later, what we see is what is called the fourth industrial revolution, in which you are participating with artificial intelligence, big data, robotics, biotechnology, neural technology, and so on. And you have graduated into that knowledge base. And of course, the IITI is teaching in that knowledge space. What we are seeing with the big industrial revolution, with the fourth industrial revolution now, is that the nature of jobs is changing in roughly the same way that the nature of jobs changed with the third industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution, and the first industrial revolution, but at a faster pace and a more accelerated rate. So what we saw with earlier waves of industrial revolution were that jobs changed in three ways. First, there was the application of new technology to existing jobs. And this meant that those existing jobs became more productive. So just as an example, in the era of the third industrial revolution and before, if we took academics, university academics, and the way they worked in the period before the third industrial revolution, it was mainly with pen and paper, with chalk, with blackboards, and so on. And it was very much a personalized teaching experience with students. After the third industrial revolution, we saw the application and increasing use of computers. And nowadays, academics and students routinely use computers and computing power, software, and so on for your work. And that makes academics more productive, as well as students more productive, because you can do a lot more when you have electronic equipment and computers and of course now access to the internet and so on, that you couldn't do before that era. Right? So there's greater productivity. And we see this also in many other fields. So if you take agriculture, for instance, in the days when agriculture was depended on manual labor, whether human-powered or animal-powered labor, it was a lot less productive than when agriculture became, when industrial outputs began to be used in agriculture, like steam-powered engines and so on. And then we also see a second impact on jobs when there is an industrial revolution, which is that some jobs begin to be obsolete, skills begin to be obsolete. So we see that, for example, in earlier periods with automation, a lot of manual jobs, whether animal-powered or human manual labor, became obsolete. And so we no longer have people working on those kinds of manual tasks. Those are now done by machines. We are also seeing in the fourth industrial revolution that certain kinds of routine cognitive skills are now becoming obsolete. We no longer need human beings to do certain tasks that were done with routine cognitive skills, with routine intellectual skills, because now we have software and equipment that can do those kinds of jobs. So there are people who do various kinds of studies into the types of jobs that are in demand and jobs that are disappearing. So one of the jobs that began to disappear not disappear, but began to be reduced in demand and may disappear in future is the job of an accountant. Because now you have software and equipment that can do the job of an accountant. Similarly, the job of a radiologist is now beginning to be less in demand because there are machines that can do much of the work of a radiologist. And so these are jobs that are now beginning to be reduced around global labor markets. And then thirdly, we see that there are skills that come into being because of industrial technology. So there are new jobs, service sector jobs, like I'm sure the jobs that all of you are doing, which are new jobs, which are needed because of the technology we now have in the fourth industrial revolution, and would not have been needed in earlier periods. In fact, some of you must be working in areas where the job didn't even exist 20 years ago, or maybe even 10 years ago. You're working in very new jobs with very new skills. And over time, these kinds of skills will keep changing, and the kinds of skills needed in the types of jobs that are done will keep changing. So there were periods, even maybe periods of, let's say, 30, 40, 50 years ago, when a person entering the labor market could expect to work in the same job for 30, 40 years and retire doing very much what he or she was doing when he or she started working in that job. It would be a very similar job. But now what we are seeing is that people change jobs frequently. Many people, in fact, work in 5, 6 different firms over the course of their working career, maybe even more. And again, that may be true of many of you, that you may have been already changing jobs and moving into new jobs over time. And this reflects the technology available, the skill sets, and the opportunities for developing new skills from institutions like IIT, which also give you opportunities for lifelong learning. And then what is required for industry and technology to flourish in economic processes? So this is an interesting area of research, and what people point out from various branches of economics, including institutional economics, is that 2 things are very important for technology to flourish and for technology-intensive skills like yours to flourish. One is the whole economic and incentive environment, the information and incentive environment that governs the economic processes. So if we look back at the Roman Empire, which had the scientific knowledge of 1760, but didn't come up with an industrial revolution, it is because the incentive framework, the economic framework at that time didn't exist the way it did around the middle of the 18th century for the application of science to solving real-world problems. In fact, much of the scientific knowledge was used for warfare. It was the military expeditions that characterized the Roman Empire, and so while the empire itself spread because of its military prowess, it didn't actually generate industrial prosperity. So just if we take the steam engine, which was one of the key catalysts of the Industrial Revolution. So in the UK, we had the steam engine, and then there came the railways which transformed commerce and transformed industrial production. And then later, the steam engine also transformed shipping. And much of the 19th century prosperity of countries like Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, and so on, was because of the steam-powered shipping that was able to bring exports from those countries into the European markets, especially the UK, which imported large quantities of products from Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, and so on. The knowledge of the steam engine existed in the Roman Empire. In fact, the Roman Empire in Alexandria did have a steam engine. But they didn't apply the steam engine to developing locomotives or ships that could use steam and outperform, for example, the sailing vessels. What the Alexandrians did with their steam engine is they had a temple to the goddess Artemis or the goddess Diana, and they used the steam power to open and close the doors of that temple. So it was almost like a toy for them. It was not industrial knowledge. Right? So it was just opening and closing the doors of this temple using that scientific knowledge and the steam engine they had. And then, of course, there are many examples like that we can also cite over time. So if we look at the economic incentive framework, the economic systems that help generate technological progress, human capital progress, and economic prosperity, what we see is that generally market economies outperform centrally planned economies. And this is true over time in virtually all the economies for which we have information. So just as one set of examples, we could actually look at Sri Lanka's own economic history. And there are 3 periods of relative prosperity or greater prosperity in Sri Lanka's economic history, which were periods associated with international trade and pro-market economic policies. So the first were periods of the ancient Sinhalese or Sri Lankan kings, the ancient kings. And there are a few kings whose periods are seen as very prosperous periods. And what we see is that prosperity was driven mainly by international trade, the spice trade. So Sri Lanka, or at that time Ceylon or Serendip, was famous for its spices, as well as trade in pearls, and of course trade in exotic animals like elephants and peacocks. So that was one period. The second period with which we are more familiar is the middle of the 19th century. So the period of the second industrial revolution, when the tea trade, the coconut and rubber trade began to flourish, and Sri Lanka's economy was actually Asia's most prosperous economy on a per capita income basis in that period of the 19th century and the early 20th century. Even as recently as 1900 and maybe 1910, Sri Lanka's per capita income was higher than any other Asian country, including Japan. Japan began to overtake Sri Lanka only around 1920 on a per capita income basis. And that prosperity was driven by the plantation economy, but with the application of technology and the application of, for example, steam engines into mining and so on. And then the third period of prosperity came from the 1977 opening of the economy. Of course, most of you will be, the students here would not even have been born then, but maybe some of the others around could remember the period of controls of bread queues, rationing, and so on of the early 1970s with a centralized controlled economy and the opening of the economy of 1977, and then subsequently the industrial growth, particularly in textiles and garments, which is now anyway our main export industry, but also the service industry in IT, in which I'm sure most of you or all of you must be working, and which is a very important part of Sri Lanka's prosperous economy today, the prosperous part of our economy today, which is the kind of work you all do, and the kind of graduates for which IIT seeks to produce. We also have some other examples that are very interesting. So generally in economics, we cannot conduct natural experiments like in the sciences where you can control for all other factors and then just see how one factor affects the outcome of the experiment. That's not possible usually in economies because you work with people. So you can't control all other factors and then just change one factor. But we have some natural experiments that came accidentally, almost like or randomly. One example is what we call the two Germany. So after the Second World War, Germany, which was the same people, the same culture, the same religion, the same language, and so on, the same people, split. Eastern Germany came under Russian dominance and then became a communist country. And Western Germany practiced market economies since Western Germany was liberated by market economies like the UK and the US with their soldiers. And what we saw over a period of 40 odd years is that West Germany became one of the most advanced economies of the entire world, while East Germany lagged in technology and in prosperity so badly that the East Germans themselves rose in revolt in the late 1980s, tore down the Berlin Wall, which divided East Berlin and West Berlin in 1988, and they themselves brought down the Eastern German regime so that they could link up with the prosperity of West Germany. The other example are the two Koreas, North Korea and South Korea. And these are also very interesting because if we take all what we call now the developed countries of the world, the developed economies, the very high income economies, there are only 3 examples, 2 countries and one part of a country, which belong to that very high income category that were not part of the developed world in 1939, before the Second World War. And those are South Korea, Singapore, and the Hong Kong province of China. The Hong Kong province of China and Singapore are special cases. Singapore was a city-state. The Hong Kong province of China was the port through which China traded with the rest of the world. So those are special cases. So really, there is only one country that was not a developed country in 1939, before the Second World War, but which is now a developed country, and that is South Korea. But when the two Koreas split after the Korean War in 1950-51, North Korea had a larger population than South Korea and was more prosperous, had a higher per capita income than South Korea. And again, this is a good natural experiment because these were the same people, the same history, the same culture, the same language, the Korean people. But South Korea, which practiced market-oriented economic policies, developed very rapidly. North Korea stagnated. And in just a period of about 10 years, in the early 1960s, South Korea's per capita income overtook North Korea's. And then, of course, now we see huge divergence. South Korea is a very technologically advanced country, as I'm sure all of you must be knowing, and a very high income country. North Korea, one of the poorest nations in the world, and maybe the only nation in the world where their leaders have been grandfather, father, and grandson in modern times. Right? So very old-fashioned kind of succession in politics. So this is very important. The whole economic framework, and unfortunately it does not seem well understood when one reads the newspapers, which keep criticizing the open economy, keep criticizing market-oriented policies. But it is that policy framework which enables the kinds of industries in which you work to flourish. If that was not the case, I'm sure most of you would not be working in the kinds of industries you do, and those kinds of firms would not even exist in Sri Lanka. The other part of an economy which is very important for prosperity in the long term and in ways that are not easily obvious, especially when you work in the private sector, is the ethical underpinnings or ethical foundations of a society. So if you have an ethical economy, if you have an ethical culture, if you have firms and businesses that conduct ethical practices, that creates an environment in which it is easier for countries, for firms to flourish than when firms are engaged in corrupt and unethical practices. And this is it's a very delicate balance, because sometimes when many firms are practicing ethical behavior, one firm may be able to practice unethical behavior and make extra profits, right? So it's not always an easy experience, but in the mass, when firms and businesses are practicing working in ethical ways, what we call transactions costs in economics are reduced, and it is easier to work and generate prosperity through innovation, through hard work, through intelligence, through socio-emotional skills, than when there is corruption and when there is unethical practices in businesses. So I hope many of you who must be holding very important positions in your firms and will also one day hold maybe the leading positions in your firms will remember this, the importance of ethical businesses and ethical practices, which in the long run generate prosperity for everyone compared to unethical practices in businesses. And then also for the academics who work in the IIT, it's important to keep in mind that increasingly what we see is that in addition to cognitive skills, which is what our academic disciplines are geared to produce, it is also important to generate socio-emotional skills in students and in graduates. And what we see is that over time, during the career of a university graduate, we see that the chances of success depend as much on socio-emotional skills as they do in cognitive skills. And cognitive skills are often important early on in a career, but career progression and career development depend even more on socio-emotional skills. So it's very important for higher education institutions such as yours to pay attention not only to cognitive skills and technical skills and knowledge, but also to socio-emotional skills. So I hope that as you, as young graduates, move back to your work, you will keep in mind the importance of the economic environment, which of course I'm sure all of you agree, because I'm sure all of you work in the private sector, but also the importance of ethical behavior and the importance of ethical businesses, which underpin a prosperous economy. So thank you very much to the IIT for inviting me as your chief guest today. And let me wish all the graduates here the very best in your future careers. Thank you.
So we have come to an important part of the convocation, and there will be two special awards. I would like to invite the chief guest, Dr. Harsha Aturupani and Dr. Gamini Wickramasinghe, Chairman of Informatics, and also Kishani Pereira, Director of Informatics, to come forward and give away the award. So this is for outstanding achievement, and the student who has obtained the highest aggregate on your course will be receiving this award. And the award is Dr. Gamini Wickramasinghe Gold Medal for Outstanding Achievement for MSc in Business Analytics, Big Data Analytics, goes to Tennakon Mudyansilage Chaminda Bandara Tennakon.
Now I take the privilege of announcing the gold medalist for MSc in Business Analytics. The gold medalist 2020-21, Dr. Gamini Wickramasinghe Gold Medal for Outstanding Achievement, MSc in Business Analytics, Sasanka Chamara Kanake Gamage. Thank you. Congratulations, Sasanka. I wish all the best for all your future endeavors. Now, I would like to invite Ms. K. Utistra, upon who we just conferred the MSc in Business Analytics, representing all the students who got their credentials today, to propose the vote of thanks for the today's session.
Good evening, everyone. Distinguished persons whose presence I would like to recognize: Dr. Harsha Aturupani, Chief Guest, the Chairman, Dr. Gamini Wickramasinghe, the Managing Director, Informatics Group, Hiran Wickramasinghe, Director Informatics Group, Kishani Pereira, Board of Directors, IIT CEO Mohan Fernando, Head School of Computing, Robert Gordon University, Professor John Isaac, Professor Nirmali Veeratunga, Dean Computing Studies at IIT Naomi Krishna Raja, Dean Business Studies at IIT Professor PSM Gunaratna, HOD Business at IIT Austin Mascarenga, HOD Computing at IIT Dr. Kodikara, Course Leader Big Data Analytics at IIT Qasim Farooq, Course Leader Business Analytics at IIT Alroy Mascarenga, lecturers, support staff, families, and of course my fellow graduates. It is a great privilege and pleasure to stand here to deliver a vote of thanks. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all of you for allocating your valuable time to attend and make this event memorable. This occasion is special in many ways. It is very special because 60+ graduates who have had their Masters in Business Analytics and Masters in Big Data Analytics conferred together. And this is the evidence of our hard work. Today is a day of revelation, yes, revealing our hard work to the world. A big congratulations to my fellow graduates for this momentous achievement. Your hard work, our hard work, is evident today. It is often said that gratitude is the attitude that makes you to the altitude. And so, on behalf of graduates, I take this opportunity to thank all of those who have supported in practical ways behind the scenes. From the mentors, lecturing staff, our ever supportive, tireless families, librarians, and support staff at IIT. Over the past years, we have been fortunate enough to backed by a team of extremely supportive, highly motivated, and dedicated lecturers. With their wealth of knowledge and experience, they have nurtured our talents, which we perhaps had lost sight or didn't even know we have possessed. As a result, here among us, there are software engineers who have had become BI engineers, business analysts who become analytics managers, and senior engineers who are now architects, and the list goes on. All this talented soul made us to think more critically and compassionately. For this, we owe them a huge debt of gratitude. As per the saying, we believe knowledge is power and ignorance is slavery. Today, we stand here together as a proud cohort of friends, as the thirst of knowledge and the desire to learn and achieve that made us to stand here together. This power is not the power to control or boast about or take benefit from others. This power, I would say, to make a difference. Finally, I feel very much privileged to have this moment, and it has been such a great honor. As a closing note, I take this opportunity to share my experience. And let me tell you my 2 cents. Being business analytic graduate at IIT helped me to shape myself who I am today, not just as a person in career-wise, but academic-wise, research-wise, and career-wise, which opened me paths to different avenues in the academic world with many scholarships that I didn't even know I could reach to. And it is definitely a life-changing experience. With that note, I wish every success to every graduate who is here today to begin another milestone of their life. Let's make this journey remarkable until we conquer the analytic world. Congratulations to you all.
I now declare this convocation closed.
Day.